What's up, fight fans? Before we get into today's absolutely insane news, I need to tell you about something that happened just 24 hours ago that's going to change everything we thought we knew about the bantamweight division. Stick around because what I'm about to reveal about Sean O'Malley's training footage will blow your mind, and trust me, you don't want to miss the bombshell Jon Jones just dropped about his next opponent. Welcome back to MMA Discuss News, where we break down the stories that matter most in the fight game. Let's dive straight into our first piece of news that has everyone talking. Sean O'Malley just gave his brutally honest take on the upcoming Merab vs. Cory Sandhagen fight, and let me tell you, he didn't hold anything back. Speaking on his podcast with his usual confidence, O'Malley broke down exactly why this fight is way more important than people realize. He pointed out that everyone's sleeping on how technical this matchup really is. According to O'Malley, people are making a huge mistake by automatically giving Merab the edge. He explained that Cory's striking arsenal is something special. His timing, distance management, and ability to make elite fighters look ordinary shouldn't be underestimated. O'Malley admitted that when he watches Cory fight, he sees similarities to his own approach, which is probably why he has so much respect for Sandhagen's skill set. But here's where it gets interesting. O'Malley revealed that he's been studying both fighters extensively because he knows he'll likely face the winner. He said Merab's pressure and cardio are absolutely insane, something that reminds him of the old-school Dagestani approach. But he also noted that Cory has this ability to create chaos and scrambles that could give Merab serious problems. The most telling comment came when O'Malley said, "Style-wise, Cory fights like I fight, and I saw what Merab did to that style. But Cory's not me, and that might make all the difference." It's rare to hear O'Malley give that much credit to a potential opponent while also showing that level of self-awareness about his own losses. He went deeper into the breakdown, explaining that Merab's strength isn't just physical, it's mental. Once he gets you in those grinding positions, most fighters start to panic. But O'Malley thinks Cory's experience in those exact situations, especially in his recent fights, could be the key to pulling off what many consider an upset. Now, before we move to our next story that'll shock you, I need your help for just 1 second. We're grinding hard to bring you the most in-depth MMA coverage on YouTube, and the only way we grow is with your support. Hit that like button if you're enjoying this breakdown, subscribe to MMA Discuss News, and smash that notification bell so you never miss our daily updates. Moving on to some explosive news. Michael Bisping just shared his thoughts on a potential crossover fight that nobody saw coming: Ilia Topuria vs. Terence Crawford. And according to Bisping, this isn't as crazy as it sounds. Bisping explained that after seeing Dana White's recent business moves with Crawford, the framework is already there for something massive to happen. He compared it to the Mayweather vs. McGregor situation, pointing out that sometimes the most unlikely fights become reality when the money and hype align perfectly. What makes this particularly interesting is how Bisping broke down the business side. He said that Ilia brings this massive European fan base, especially from Spain and Georgia, while Crawford has the American boxing audience locked up. Put them together, and you're looking at a global spectacle that could rival some of the biggest combat sports events in history. But Bisping also raised the critical question: would Crawford even want this fight? From a legacy standpoint, beating an MMA fighter might not add much to Crawford's resume. However, Bisping pointed out that when you're already at the top like Crawford is, sometimes the biggest paydays come from the most unexpected places. He reminded everyone how skeptical people were about McGregor versus Mayweather initially. Everyone said it would never happen, that it didn't make sense, that neither fighter would agree to it. Yet it became one of the highest grossing events in combat sports history. The key factor, according to Bisping, is Dana White's involvement with both fighters. He's already done business with Crawford, and Ilia is obviously under UFC contract. That existing relationship could be what makes this whole thing possible when it would be impossible for other promoters to pull off. Here's where things get really spicy. Darren Till just went absolutely nuclear on Renato Moicano and Gilbert Burns after they made some comments that clearly hit a nerve. The whole situation started when Burns and Moicano were discussing a hypothetical boxing match between Till and Luke Rockhold on their podcast. The conversation took a turn when they started talking about Till's age and appearance, joking that he looks way older than he actually is. Burns guessed Till was around 31 or 32, but they both agreed he looked like he was pushing 40. They even suggested it might be the English look that made him seem older, which apparently was the last straw for Till. Moicano chimed in saying that in a pure boxing match, he'd actually favor Rockhold over Till, despite Rockhold being close to 40. Burns agreed, pointing to Rockhold's boxing fundamentals. They even brought up how Mike Perry finished Rockhold in bare knuckle, but Burns dismissed that by saying anyone facing Perry in that format would probably get the same result. Till's response was absolutely savage. He fired back on social media saying, "Someone tell Gilbert Burns he looks like a crumpled up piece of paper and Renato can't even string a sentence together. I speak better Portuguese than both of them guys. How embarrassing that I'm more from their country than they are." The clapback immediately went viral, with fans split between finding Till's response hilarious and others saying he went too far. But anyone who knows Till's personality saw this coming from a mile away. The guy has never let anyone disrespect him without firing back twice as hard. Moving to a story that shows the darker side of fighting. Jared Gordon finally opened up about why he decided to fight just one day after being hit by a car, and his explanation reveals the kind of pressure these fighters face behind the scenes. Gordon stepped into the octagon against Rafael Garcia at UFC Noche with a sprained MCL, an injury that ultimately contributed to him getting stopped by TKO in the third round. Speaking candidly on Full Send MMA, Gordon revealed the mental calculation that led to such a risky decision. He explained that on the way to the ceremonial weigh-ins, he was already limping badly. But the thought of showing up visibly injured wasn't an option in his mind. He knew that if doctors or UFC officials saw him struggling, they'd pull him from the fight immediately. So he bit down, pushed through the pain, and acted like nothing happened. What's really telling is Gordon's explanation about momentum. He just signed a new contract, was coming off a knockout win, and was booked on a main card against a tough opponent. In his mind, this was his moment to prove he belonged at that level, and no injury was going to stop him. Gordon also addressed critics who suggested he only fought because he needed the money. He fired back saying he has income outside of fighting and doesn't depend solely on the sport. His decision was about career momentum, not financial desperation. The timing played a huge role too. If the accident had happened months before, pulling out would have been understandable. But to weigh in and then back out the next day? Gordon felt that would have looked terrible on his record and could have damaged his relationship with UFC matchmakers. Now here's some news that has hardcore fans buzzing. BS Rutten shared his vision for what should headline the historic UFC card at the White House, and his choice might surprise you: Jon Jones vs. Tom Aspinall. Rutten explained that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that deserves the biggest fight possible. He believes every champion should be featured on this card, but Jones vs. Aspinall as the main event would create something truly special. During his interview with Bloody Elbow, Rutten emphasized that this isn't just another event, it's something that will be talked about for decades. Having Jones, potentially the greatest fighter of all time, competing at the White House would elevate the entire sport to a new level of mainstream recognition. The challenge, of course, is getting Jones to commit. Reports suggest the UFC already tried to meet his financial demands for the Aspinall fight, but Jones stepped back from negotiations. That hesitation is why Dana White seems reluctant to have him headline such an important card. But Rutten believes the magnitude of fighting at the White House could be the motivating factor that finally gets this fight made. He pointed out that the entire world would be watching, not just MMA fans. For Jones, it could be the perfect capstone to an already legendary career. Here's a story that'll make your blood boil. Kevin Lee is dealing with a nightmare situation after his recent knockout loss to Godzi Rabadanov. The broken jaw that required surgery is bad enough, but the hospital bill he's facing is absolutely insane. Lee posted a detailed video explaining how a simple CT scan and emergency room visit in Kansas cost him over $31,000. Breaking it down, $22,000 was just for the CT scans, with another $9,000 for the emergency room visit where he basically sat in a hallway for an hour before getting some ibuprofen and being sent home. Here's the kicker. When Lee got the same CT scans done in Florida the next day, plus an additional x-ray, it cost him $420. That's not a typo. The exact same medical procedure cost nearly 400 times more in Kansas than it did in Florida. Lee has been calling hospitals and insurance companies for weeks trying to make sense of these charges, but he keeps getting the runaround. He's asking for help from anyone who might know how to deal with this kind of medical billing nightmare. Finally, let's talk about a situation that perfectly illustrates the challenges of being a public figure. Rampage Jackson found himself in a heated exchange at a bar after some guys started filming him without permission. The whole thing escalated when Jackson made it clear he wasn't comfortable being recorded. He tried to explain that being a public figure doesn't mean he has to tolerate cameras everywhere he goes. You could hear the frustration in his voice as he kept saying, "I don't expect you to understand." Jackson's point was simple. Unless you've lived life as a celebrity constantly being watched and recorded, you can't understand how exhausting it becomes. The guys filming tried to deny they were recording him directly, but Jackson wasn't buying it. The exchange never became a full altercation, but it was clear Jackson felt disrespected. It's a reminder of the constant tension public figures face when trying to have normal moments in public spaces. That wraps up another episode of MMA Discuss News. Thanks for sticking around through all these crazy stories. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for daily MMA coverage, and hit the bell so you never miss our breakdowns. We'll see you in the next one.